Good day, everyone. I'm Danico B. Escobedo, your reporter in Sociocultural Anthropology with the topic of collective behavior and social movements. When we say collective behavior in social movements, it is a section of American sociological associations composed of sociologists who focus on the study of emerging and extra-institutional group phenomena. These include the behavior associated with the crowds, disaster, fads, revolutionary movements, riots, and social movements. So now, let's proceed to the next slide. Nature and meaning of collective behavior. According to Sanden 1993, collective behavior refers to ways of thinking, feeling, and acting which develop among a larger number of people and which are relatively spontaneous and unstructured. Collective behavior refers to relatively non-routine actions that engage large, often anonymous groups of people. It entails episodes of behavior that deeper characterize our daily lives and that primarily follow established norms and patterns according to Rose 1982. And according to Turner and Killian 1987, define collective behavior as a form of social behavior in which the annual convention cease to guide social actions and people collectively transcend, bypass, or subvert established institutional patterns and structures. So in the course of people's daily lives and human social intercourse, people manifest organized or institutionalized behavior which is regulated by established cultural norms and with clearly defined behavior is necessary to maintain harmony, orderly social relations, peace, and order in the society. So when we say unstructured patterns, it is a behavior arise in ordinary and usual situations characterized by uncertainty and feeling of crisis. The group behavior is not guided by their own norms and values. This unorganized behavior is unstructured. Situations in turn is collective behavior. Collective behavior includes crowd, mass, fads, passion, cries, disaster, behavior, and public. So now let's proceed to the next slide. Theories about collective behavior. Ignorant mass theory, the belief that collective behavior is the result of uneducated, thoughtless, and impulsive behavior. So meaning, ignorant mass theory is the example of people doing things without knowing the very reason why such activity happens. The second one is rational decision-making approach. This theory presents an opposite view of ignorant mass theory. According to these rational and intelligent decisions, when people are confronted by situations where organized norms do not govern collective actions. So meaning people involved in mob behavior, such as looting during congregations, had decided that looting of private property is for the general personal advantage. The third one is emergent norms perspective according to Turner and Killian 1987. This holds that collective behavior is not characterized by anonymity but by differences in expressions and emotions. So meaning, the member of the group of act differently is unstructured situations because they are guided by the emergent norms and individual definitions of the situations. So in institutions lacking firm guidelines for coping, people evolve new social norms as they interact with one another. So next slide please. The fourth slide is emotional and social contagion theory by Lee Van, 1993. Argued that the transformations of individual into crowd puts them in possession of a collective mind that makes people think, feel, and act differently from the way they would if they were alone. So individuals become highly suggestible. They are no longer conscious of their actions. Waves of emotion sweep through the crowd, infecting one person after other. Much as highly contagious disease is spread as excitement builds, people because become more and more inclined to act on their mounting feelings of agitations. So the fifth one is convergence perspective. This approach holds the participants in collective behavior and motivated by common forces within them, such as similarity or commonality of aspirations, characteristic, social class, income, education, interests, and needs. Um, so the collectivity is considered homogeneous, as they share many things in common. This is simplified by rallies and demonstrations carried on by farmers, by fisher folks, by teachers, by student activists, by the urban poor, and by other protest movements. Then sixth Six is value. According to Selmer 1982, there exist certain conditions which may bring about collective behavior or structural strain. So next slide please. Preconditions for collective behavior. Niels Meltzer 1982 found that collective behavior does not simply spring up anytime, in any place. These conditions or determining factors occur in sequence so that each one creates a social environment that makes the next one possible. So according to him, six conditions typically preside an episode of collective behavior. They are as follows. So number one is structural conduciveness. When we say conduciveness, it is a social conditions must favor collective actions. Example is ethnic groups with opposing values system live together in the same area. So the second one is social and structural strain. It is a social strain that can spring from sudden disruptions of the existing social order for long-term social change. Values conflict between different segments of the society. Example is rich and poor. So, structural strains. It may also means that brought about by a gap between expectations and reality, between culturally approved goals and means to attain them. This calls for some kind of actions to relieve that strain, or example is rising prices of commodities and low wages. So next slide please. Third is generalized belief. Example is the generalized beliefs that there would be loss of supply of sugar in the markets, cause tensions that could lead to panic buying. So the generalized belief is the participant develops both perceptions of the event or situations, thereby making it more difficult to define and analyze. This intensifies the tension as it makes the vogue trait more imminent. This can be fostered by the press or mass media and is spread by rumor, just like the example of panic buying. The fourth one is precipitating events. Example is the assassinations of Senator Benigno Ninoy Aquino on August 21, 1983, led to mass demonstrations and EDSA revolutions and eventual voting out of the former President Ferdinand Marcos. So the precipitating events refers to a dramatic episode that happens to confirm people's generalized belief. Fifth is mobilizations of participants. Mass hysteria breaks out, panic erupts, moves form, social movements are organized, protest rallies and demonstrations are staged, and street violence eruptions. So meaning, mobilizations of participants was after the fact are in and interpreted by leaders and molders of public opinion. People begin acting on their own beliefs. Six is social control. Attempts to stop or depict the collective behavior may only fuel the mass hysteria with intensity and zeal of mass actions. Social control become ineffective. So next slide please. Views explaining crowd behavior. Emotional and social contagion theory, according to Lee Ban 1993, argued that the transformations of the individual into crowd puts them in possessions of collective mind that make people think, feel, and act differently from the way they would if they were alone. So meaning, just like what I've said earlier, individuals become highly suggestible. They're no longer conscious of their actions. Waves of emotion sweep through the crowd and infecting one person after another. Much as highly contagious disease spreads as excitement builds, people become more and more inclined to act on their mounting feelings of agitations. So according to Turner and Killian 1987, holds that in situations lacking firm guidelines for coping, people evolve new social norms as they interact with one another. The new norms evolve through gradual process of social explorations and testing. So meaning, collective behavior often originates with an established group, usually involves the emergence of new norms and social relations, and almost always reflect effort to deal with the strains in the larger society. So next slide please. So now, we will tackle the types of crowd. According to Blummer 1946, from Panafolio 2004, classified crowds into the following. So the first bullet is the casual crowd. It involves unplanned and random gathering of people and usually lacks a sense of unity. So casual crowd refers to spontaneous congregations whose members come and go, giving but temporary attention to the person or object which has aroused their interest So an example is people gathered around a display in a department store. The second bullet is the conventional crowd, where people are gathered for a specific purpose and become according to established norms. So aside from the given meaning, it is also refers to planned gathering of people at specific events, at definite place and time. Just the example is audiences.